At the beginning of the 21st century, inequality in Mumbai was impossible to ignore. Luxury towers rose beside informal settlements. Glass and concrete stood next to corrugated metal and tarpaulin. Wealth and poverty shared the same streets, the same noise, the same heat. Many believed this contrast was temporary, that technology, automation, artificial intelligence, and smart urban planning would eventually flatten the gap. That progress itself would dissolve inequality simply by moving forward. It didn't. By the year 2075, Mumbai did not become more equal. It became more organized. Inequality did not disappear. It was archived, stabilized, and built directly into the structure of the city. Mumbai no longer expands outward. There is no space left to sprawl. Instead, the city grows upward, not chaotically, not symbolically, but systematically. Verticality becomes policy. Height becomes hierarchy. The city is no longer divided by neighborhoods alone, but by altitude. Every meter above the ground carries social meaning. At the lowest levels, closest to the ground, life continues in permanent proximity to infrastructure. These layers exist in constant shadow. Sunlight rarely reaches the streets. Heat accumulates and never fully escapes. The air is thick, humid, heavy with movement and exhaust. This is where the physical city still breathes through human bodies. Manual labor has not vanished here. It has concentrated. Cleaning systems, waste processing, structural maintenance, flood defense, recycling, repair of aging foundations. Tasks automation never fully replaced because human bodies remain cheaper, more adaptable, and easier to discard. Machines assist, but they do not replace. Efficiency stops where cost rises. Housing at these levels is dense and intentionally temporary. Not illegal, not chaotic, but deliberately minimal. Enough to sleep, enough to recover, never enough to settle. Water is regulated, energy is rationed, climate control fluctuates. These environments are not abandoned. They are maintained precisely at the threshold required to keep the city functioning. Time behaves differently here. Days feel long and exhausting. Heat slows the body. Noise never fully disappears. Life is measured in shifts, in physical output, in recovery. Sleep is shallow. Rest is functional. The future is not imagined. It is endured. Above these layers lies the middle of the city, the administrative core. Here, temperature stabilizes. Air is filtered. Sound softens. This is where offices rise, where data centers hum, where monitoring hubs operate continuously. Work becomes cognitive rather than physical. People here do not produce goods. They manage systems. They supervise neural networks that predict demand, allocate resources, detect anomalies, and correct inefficiencies before they surface. Decisions are rarely personal. Responsibility is abstracted. Outcomes are measured statistically. Surveillance is embedded into the architecture, not as force, not as threat, but as background. Movements are logged. Patterns are recorded. Deviations are flagged not as crimes, but as inefficiencies. Residents of the middle levels live in compact but stable environments. Their lives are comfortable, but tightly optimized. Freedom is not removed. It is narrowed. Time in these layers becomes segmented. Days break into tasks, performance metrics, system health indicators. Nothing collapses, but nothing truly changes. Stability replaces expectation. Life continues without rupture. Above the administrative layers, the city opens. The upper levels receive cleaner air, controlled sunlight, managed silence. Noise from below does not reach this height. Heat dissipates before arriving. The city feels lighter here, almost detached from its own weight. These levels were never meant to be dense. They are intentionally sparse. Here live those whose presence is classified as strategic: investors, long-term stakeholders, system owners rather than system users. People whose decisions affect millions, but whose daily lives rarely intersect with the consequences. Living spaces are large, private, and isolated. Nature exists here as curated experience. Gardens, filtered light, controlled greenery. The city feels calm, almost gentle. Distance from the ground is not just physical, it is psychological. Time stretches at the top. Days are quiet, weeks blur. The future is no longer urgent. Decisions unfold slowly, consequences arrive later, if at all. The city below becomes a diagram rather than a lived reality. In Mumbai 2075, social mobility no longer moves sideways, it moves vertically. Where you live is no longer just an address, it is a classification. Predictive systems assess individuals early in life. Education access, occupational paths, residential eligibility, all determined through probability models, not based on morality or intent, but on optimization. The system does not ask who you want to become. It calculates where you are most efficient. Education reflects this structure. At the lower levels, learning is practical and immediate. Skills are trained for use, not growth. At the middle levels, education focuses on supervision, systems thinking, abstract problem solving. Creativity exists, but within boundaries. At the top, learning becomes strategic, philosophical, detached from urgency. Knowledge is no longer about survival, it is about influence. Children do not grow up with the same horizon. What they imagine as possible is shaped by altitude long before choice becomes conscious. Aspiration adjusts itself quietly to architecture. Technology ensures this adjustment is seamless. There are no visible barriers, no explicit prohibitions. Access simply narrows as one moves downward. Interfaces change, options disappear, recommendations become defaults. Defaults become inevitabilities. The system does not say no, it says this is what works best for you. Most people never leave the vertical zone they were born into. Not because it is forbidden, but because movement requires statistical justification. Resistance fades not through force, but through absorption. Inequality no longer feels like injustice. It feels like structure. Mumbai is no longer chaotic. Crime has decreased. Infrastructure failures are rare. Traffic flows predictably. Energy distribution is stable. The city functions with a precision it never achieved before. Inequality was not ignored. It was formalized. The unpredictability of the past was replaced by architectural certainty. Informal divisions became structural ones. Friction was reduced by separation. Each layer fulfills its function. Each level sustains the one above it. The system works, and that is the conflict. Mumbai 2075 is not a city in collapse. It is a city that accepted inequality and chose to manage it instead of challenging it. Technology did not break the caste system embedded in society. It removed its randomness. It stripped it of visibility. It made inequality efficient, predictable, and permanent. This is not a dystopia in the traditional sense. There are no riots, no visible repression, no mass suffering on display. There is order, stability, growth. But when inequality is no longer treated as failure, when it is no longer something to correct, it stops being a problem. It becomes infrastructure. Responsibility dissolves upward. Accountability diffuses into systems. The city no longer asks who deserves what. It asks what is most efficient. Mumbai in 2075 does not promise equality. It promises balance. And balance, once achieved, becomes difficult to question. This is the final transformation. Not oppression, but acceptance. Not collapse, but optimization. A city that did not fail to change, but changed in a way that made inequality permanent. The future did not destroy the caste system, it finished it.